Hello Degens, and welcome to our king, Caesar. Now, it's not very often I say this, but Caesar right here, I actually do think that she is what I would call game-changing. And so today, I want to walk you guys through her kit and kind of like my first impressions as to like how I feel about her. And before we actually get into it, do remember, I'm sure you guys already know, this is the creator media server, so things are going to be subject to change. This is not the final version. That said, let me start off by showing you how I built our king. So she is completely maxed out, level 60 with all skills maxed. And coming back to her base stats, you can see that I have actually built her like a crit attacker, 55% crit rate, 74% crit damage. And the exception is going to be an impact slot 6 proto punk. So you can see 18% impact over here. And if you guys don't know by now, this orange highlighted stat over here, it means that Hoyoverse wants us to focus on this stat. There is some kind of skill, whether it's core or additional, whatever, that scales off of the orange stats. So in the case of Caesar King, it is going to be impact. All right, and so coming through to the equipment, I am running 4 proto punk, which is going to give the extra shield effect, as well as extra damage on defensive assist or evasive assist. For the 2-piece set, I've got the Shock Star Disco, and then for slot 6, again, it was impact. Slot 5, we've got pen ratio, simply because I had some nice substats. And then slot 4, crit rate with a little bit of extra offensive stats. For today, I'll be using her signature W engine, Tusks of Fury. But when I do come out with her guide, when I do understand her a little bit better, I will be using those free-to-play ones. I got you guys. I will be looking at the lower cost options. And so that said, let's get into her kit itself, starting off with her basic attack string. Bear with me, my guys. I do highly recommend you stick around for this part because there are a lot of things that just aren't immediately obvious. All right, and so in terms of the basic attack string, 6 hit string. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 leap into the air with a big downward smash. A very normal string, and as always, all of the ratios are actually backloaded, so you can see 94, blah, 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 coming up to 800% for 6 hit. And then same kind of thing goes for your 6 hit on your day's multiplier, 394. These are actually pretty insane ratios. We'll talk about this a little bit later. All right, and so now you guys know about the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are actually multiple entry points to get into that combo. So the first is actually just using EX. So EX 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So EX 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6. And you'll see that that third hit is a little bit different. It's the alternative version because in the first version, the basic attack, 1, 2, 3, we throw out our sword, but that alternative version is actually this one over here. It does have a smaller ratio, but it's okay. It's like only 60%. Don't worry too much about it. And the second way that we can activate in that alternative version is to actually get a dodge counter. All right, and so let's go for the golden flash. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So that's the alternative version if you guys were wondering. All right, and so last of all, before we move on from the basic attacks, what you can do is you can hold down your basic attack to use this massive shield-like spinning thing. It's really freaking cool. However, what you do need to understand is that using that is going to actually expand our assist points down here. So I'm going to use it again. You're going to see we're going to go from 4 to 3. Ding, 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 ding. We are down to 3 points. Now, I do think that this is actually such a freaking cool mechanic because a lot of the time, most people actually overcap on these assist points down here. And I do think that giving it an offensive use is just such a brilliant idea. All right, next, let's talk about her EX skill. So the shiny one down here, I'm going to tap it without anything happening. And you can see I am crouching down. This is called guard stance. And when I'm in guard stance, all damage I take is reduced by 40%. So I'm going to do it again and it's going to put me into guard stance. However, this is the EX version. This is the one with the energy. I'm going to use up the energy one more time and then I'm going to put myself into guard stance. I have no energy now and I am still in guard stance and it is the exact same thing. I do take 40% less damage if I get hit whilst in that stance. What we can also do though, whilst in guard stance, so guard stance, and we can tap E again to actually do an offensive attack. So I'm just gonna do that again, E and E. And then if I have the energy threshold, I can E twice to do some pretty big dick stuff. So E and then E again. That's pretty freaking cool. And then of course we come to the perfect parrying where we do need a moving enemy. And so this is essentially allowing you to parry pretty much anything. You saw I did take a little bit of damage, but that's because I kind of suck. But as you can see, if I do hit E at the right time, getting a perfect parry, I am able to actually get that big blue blow. And you see this buff that is fading away. This thing is called Stance Switch, and it increases your impact by 20% for 3 seconds. This thing is freaking awesome, especially because after parrying, we can actually do a counter, right? So parry and then big counter, all of that is going to be used with the big impact buff. All right, and so I think that is pretty much it for the E skill. So I am going to move on to a couple of other things. I think we've got the usual suspects. We've got the dash attack, and we've got a dodge counter just like that. Dash attack and dodge counter. Now, something that is pretty cool with our dodge counter is I can dodge counter and then E immediately after for a combo. Now, I'm still not 100% sure of the utility of this one yet, but give me a little bit of time to figure it out. All right, and then so this is going to be a great opportunity to show you guys the chain combo. And as you can see, it is relatively fast. It's not as fast as Nicole's. Like Nicole freaking fires a massive bomb and then just like dips out. I would say that her chain combo is probably like right in the middle of the pack. So you can see it like again right now. And that is, it's quite long to be honest. And then last of all, we've got her ultimate. So pretty sick animation. I think it is pretty much just a whole bunch of physical damage. And that animation is relatively long. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to see if I can actually swap cancel this. I can't swap cancel it, not until the very end. All right, and so that is pretty much all of her active skills in a nutshell. What I do need to talk about is her most important skills though, which are her additional ability and core passive. And so for the core passive, the TLDR is that if you do a whole bunch of different things like EX parry counter, chain attack, ultimate, or EX special attack, overpowered shield, which is like the EE, she gives the entire team a Radiant Aegis shield equal to 1400 of her base impact plus 1400. Now this shield is really cool and all. As you can see over here, the shield gauge is actually next to the character. I think that's a really cool design change. But on top of all of that, what the shield does do is it gives you anti-interruption, which is massive because you pretty much can't get staggered. And so you can just keep doing things like doing whatever you want to do. But on top of that, you get a flat 1000 attack buff, which is absolutely staggering and freaking awesome because we don't have to meet some kind of requirement to get there, right? Like we got the Lucy, we got the Sokaku who are like, oh, this attack buff, you can get up to 1000, but you got to stack it with like 40% of your attack or something. This one is actually just straight up free 1000 attack. It's pretty nutty, man. But then we come down over here, additional ability, Battle Spirit. So if you meet the requirements over here and you do a perfect block, retaliation, defensive assist, or basic attack, dead end is the shield thing. Our Caesar applies a debuff effect to enemies within a 7-meter radius. So this is AoE, and it increases the damage that those enemies take from our teammates by 25% for 30 seconds, which is even more nutty. To be honest, like even if we didn't have this attack buff increased by 1000, this freaking debuff over here is already massive on its own. All right, and so now that we're like pretty familiar with this kit over here, there are a few different things that I did want to mention. And the first is that if you go through all of her multipliers, so like the 397 into the 800 for 5 and 6 hit, we've got like the 206 into the 394. If you look at her EX skill, we've got massive damage and days multipliers across the board, coming down to her chain attack and her ultimate, 4025%. That is more than Ellen. That is more than like a whole bunch of other DPS characters. Let me check like Zhu. And so coming over here, 3955 ultimate damage multiplier. Absolutely nutty. Now, that doesn't mean that our Caesar is going to be stronger than our DPS characters. Absolutely not. They have more attack. They have more like buffs and debuffs. So like Zhu has, the extra 20%. Whilst the enemy is stunned, she's also got like an attack or offensive based ether set. So I'm just talking about like this one over here, which gives you extra crit damage and more crit damage if the enemy is corrupted. Caesar doesn't have access to all of these different things, right? Like you could actually try building it if you wanted, but I would probably leave like main DPSs to do main DPS. That said though, what Caesar does have is that massive impact stat, which actually does make her competing with a lot of the existing stunners, such as your Collider, such as your Lycon. And so at the very least, she certainly acts as a stunner. Now, it's those like massive damage ratios that got me thinking. I was like, ooh, that is a lot of damage. So maybe I'll just freaking build her crit, right? The other option, of course, is to actually build her Anomaly. And maybe she can actually like help us build more Assault, right? Whether it is for your Jane Doe. So just building up that Assault, and I'm about to trigger it. Let's see what we get. That is going to be 54k. kind of pitiful, but obviously I didn't build for it, right? Now, that being said though, I'm not sure that that is like really the greatest option for Jane Doe in particular, because on one hand, we will get more anomaly procs, we will get more assaults, but on the other hand, we will have weaker assaults because anomaly damage is calculated by the people who actually contributed to the build-up, right? So if our Caesar, our king, she contributes like a lot to the anomaly build-up, to the assault will do a lot less damage. Other than that though, she could actually be a contributor to disorder for like your Juyuan, where Juyuan will push the corruption. We've got Ellen and her freeze, etc. Still investigating. That's just the other pathway that I can kind of see maybe happening for Caesar. Right now, like I'm enjoying her crit rate build, to be honest. All right, and so the second thing is her playstyle itself. She's like incredibly fluid, and I think one of the major reasons is because I can actually activate that parry at any time. So I'm gonna go all the way up to 5, so that's number 5, 6, and then parry, right? I canceled my 6, which is actually a pretty dumb move, but I can parry at any time. Like let's say I am basic attacking this guy, and I am at 3, 4, 5, and I can actually parry, right? Like I said, it's not the greatest idea, because here's the but, right? Her shield, as you can see, it is anti-interrupt. I am not getting staggered at all. And you guys remember how I showed you all of the damage and all of the days, the highest multipliers are at the end. So if you are going to actually do your basic attacks, you want to be going to commit all the way to the end for that big damage, boom, as you can see, as well as the big days. Like maybe instead of my Nicole, I'm running Lycone instead, and he's got like the big fat shield. So I'm just gonna go proc the shield now, and then I've got the shield, as you can see with the bar over here. I've got my Lycone, and what I can do is I can actually get all of those charge attacks through all the way to the very end. Da-da-ding, dong. And then I just keep doing it because I don't give a crap about what he's doing. He's not staggering me. I can just take him all the way to Stun Town. And speaking of like such a team, I do want to talk a little bit about her versatility, because to be honest, she is truly both a stunner and a support. We've already covered why she is such a fantastic stunner because of her high impact stat, because of her high impact ratios. 394 if we manage to get to number 6. We've got the decent days in the dodge counters, and then for the EX skill, coming down over here, days multiplier 379, and then again when we actually do the counter. Man, these multipliers are actually really freaking fat. But in terms of her support capability, coming back over to her core skill, giving 1000 flat attack, which is applicable to all damage dealers, attackers, as well as Anomaly. Anomaly does scale off of attack, but also giving a general debuff, which increases damage taken, which is again also applicable for everybody. And speaking of this additional ability, the one that gives the debuff, this thing is activated by anyone who can do a defensive assist. And if we were to look through like our character list, there are about like 18 characters now, I think. Of this 18, there are probably only 4 characters that can't fulfill that requirement. So you've got like your Grace, you've got like your range units, right? Grace, you've got Juyuan, you've got Billy, and I think there is one more. It's Rena down here. As long as you don't run like Rena and Juyuan, or you don't run like Juyuan and Grace, which you're not going to, you're pretty much guaranteed to always be getting that additional ability, because you can fulfill building in the characters who can clang. And so the last thing that I did want to talk about is something that sounds a little bit boring, right? But it really affects her gameplay, and it's these durations over here. 30 seconds and 90 seconds. So remembering that her attack buff, as well as the anti-interruption, is tied to the shield, and the shield lasting for 90 seconds, and it is also activated by all of these different things: EX attack, chain attack, ultimate, whatever. In practice, you do not have to really worry about any of these things, as long as you're kind of like playing optimally, right? As long as you're hitting those clangs, you're hitting those defensive assists, you're hitting the perfect blocks, you're hitting the parries, you're hitting the chain attacks, you will have both of these buffs and debuffs up pretty much 100% of the time. All that being said though, there is actually one criticism that I do have for Caesar, and it is this shield over here. So you can see I do have like a golden glow, and so let me just restart the combat so that I can show you guys what normal state looks like. So as you can see, I have no glow at all over here, and if I use EX skill, I am going to get the shield, and I have that golden glow over here as well as the shield bar. I thought that this character was bugged because I didn't see the shield icon up here. I couldn't see anything up here. This is the buff bar where you would normally expect something. But when I popped the shield and I went golden like this, there was nothing up here. And there is also nothing in the effect details tab over here. As you can see, nobody is getting anything. I don't see a shield, I don't see an attack buff, I don't see anti-interruption. Now you can validate that the shield is active by going over to detailed stats and then looking in attack, and you can see plus 1000. And then if you swap characters, I am in Soldier 11 right now, so going over and having a look at Soldier 11, 1000 attack, the shield is up, the shield is working. However, generally what has happened is that like with our Lucy buffs, with our Sokaku buffs, with pretty much all of the buffs in the game, they have all showed up in the top left hand corner. And so again, my only criticism is that I really wish that Caesar's buff, this shield, this anti-resist, all of that is actually shown up there as well, especially so that we can track the duration, just for the sake of consistency, for the sake of clarity. But to kind of wrap it up, Caesar is really great to play. She's really fluid and there are a lot of different combo options, but at the same time, she is ridiculously versatile where she can benefit every single team. And if you are a metagamer right now, she is looking like a fantastic pick, especially because she is so universal. All of that being said, I do need to do a little bit more testing, a lot more testing, but I am keen to hear what your thoughts are on what you saw today with Caesar. Are you excited? Is she kind of like what you expected? Are you going to pull for her? But my DGens, that is going to bring us to the end of the video. So as always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.